Hey guys, how are you doing? Today's show is going to be about planning a SOC 2 audit. When planning a SOC 2 audit, you have to ensure that first thing, and that's really important, is that all the stakeholders that are going to be involved in the audit are in agreement with you that this audit needs to happen and they are on board with you and they will support you throughout this exercise because it's one thing to start an audit and it's the other to let the other people know later that this audit is happening and then you have to jump through hoops to make people participate in the audit and the outcome of such an exercise is not really fruitful. So there's two ways of approaching it. One is you hire the audit firm and they do everything for you from soup to nuts. So they come in, they assess the environment, they put together the control framework with the control owners, and then they conduct the audit after the fact. Um, the other option that you have is, and this is contingent on the fact that you have a capable team that is able to do all these activities, because um, you have to develop the control framework to for the audit to be conducted, and developing a control framework is not an easy task. It takes in an organization upwards of 6 months to create a control framework. Um, so so just be careful. So that's why um, if you have the audit firm do it, then you will be paying a lot more because in on top of the audit itself, they might be charging you extra for doing this legwork for you, which like I said, it's going to take a lot of time, so it might end up being expensive. So if you have internal resources who are capable of doing it, why not leverage them? And this show is going to outline some of the activities that your internal teams can undertake to make sure that when the audit firm does show up at your doorstep to conduct the audit, they have all the information that's required and they can just do the audit, issue the audit report, and there you go, you're done, and you save a bunch of money doing that. Plus, you have this assurance that the control owners are familiar with the internal people, the internal people are familiar with all the processes of the people, and that whole experience is positive for both the control owners and the people who are um, putting together the control framework. So when you have decided on which approach to take, and let's say you are taking the second approach, um, I would suggest that first thing first is you what trust determine what trust services criteria um, your audit is going to include in it, because there are these five criteria: security, availability, processing integrity, confidentiality, and privacy. So it all depends on what level of service you are providing. Security is pretty basic. Anybody who is, if you are a infrastructure as a service provider, then you will provide this security service and availability. Um, the next two become a bit um, complicated to decide because processing integrity comes into play when you are a software as a service provider. So when you are doing some kind of processing for your client. The other one is confidentiality. If you are handling the customer's confidential data, again, a SaaS platform. Um, Then the privacy piece comes in, and security is pretty much tied very closely at the hip with the privacy piece. Um, is that, and this is a two-pronged activity for privacy where if you are a SaaS provider, then you have to make sure that you are protecting all the information that's being collected by the customer for their customers, and you're protecting that. And the other one is even if you are a SaaS, if you are a IaaS, infrastructure as a service provider, then again the privacy piece comes in where how are you protecting the information of your customers? When you have change management systems where your customer asset information might be there, your configuration management database that might hold that information. So that's where the privacy piece comes in. Um, the next area is once you've decided on which service criteria you are going to include, and this will also feed into your development of the control framework. Um, the next piece to focus on is the business areas. So, and this is not a comprehensive list that I put together. There could be many more business areas based on what your uh, what kind of business structure you have. But at the top level, just name a few of the people that I have in my list are business line VP. So you need to make sure that the business line VP is on board with this activity because sometimes what happens is product people initiate this activity and that they want to be SOC 2 compliant because of competition with some other organization that's out there that doing the same thing. So they push it without the buy-in from the business line VP or the business line top guy. So the idea is if the business line top guy or girl knows about this activity, they can make sure that all the stakeholders are brought into on the same page to make sure that that the message comes from the top saying that guys, we need to get this activity completed and why this is important. And then that's when you have to make sure the product managers are lined up, human resources people are lined up, change management teams are lined up, corporate security is included, incident management. And when I say incident management, most people just focus on the technical incident management, where a server goes out, disk fails or power supply fails or network outage or something like that. But you also have to focus on the security incident response as well. So if a server outage is results because of a security incident, then you need to have that process documented. You need to have the network support people, server support people, database people, storage support people, um, and any other teams within your organization that you can think of. And based on your hierarchy, it could well be that some of the teams that I've mentioned, they could be sitting under different VPs. So you need to make sure that you reach out to them as well and make sure they're in line. And ideally, it should be the business VP who should be making sure that all the business lines are on board with this activity. So once you've identified that indeed your team is going to be conducting this audit, and you've identified the trust services criteria to proceed with, and you have all the business people and the different teams on board, then you start, you know, gluing everything together, putting everything together, and and there's two key things that need to happen. One is the system description. So this is something that goes into the audit report, and this, if it's ready beforehand, it makes it very easy because what you can do is when you have this description of the system or system description ready, when the auditor firm comes in, you can share the description of the system with them, and that will be an acid test for you to to ensure that indeed the system description is written in a way that the auditor can understand. Because what a description of the system is pretty much um, what service you're providing to the customers. So it should include all the services at a high level. You don't have to go at the nitty-gritty, um, detail level. You just have to um, say what products are in the scope of this audit, and what products do you offer. Pretty much that. And your auditor might be able to help you with that as well, or your internal teams who have experience conducting SOC 2 audits, they can guide you on this thing as well. The next critical piece is system description is done. That's the summary of the environment. The control framework is the key. So now that you have identified the trust principles, the next piece you are doing is putting a control framework together to address those requirements. So when you're putting a control framework together, you have to make sure that there's two pieces to putting a control framework together. One is the design and the operating of the control. So when the auditors come in and they audit you against the control framework, they are pretty much looking for um, uh, two alignment on two pieces. One is the design effectiveness of the control, that the control was designed in a certain way and the design was effective. And the second one was the operating effectiveness of the control. So if once the control was designed, it was operated as it was designed, and um, the in essence of addressing the control requirements. Um, what happens is most of the times I've noticed is IT people who are planning the audit, they don't talk to the control owner. They put together a control framework for the control owners without talking to them a lot. And what happens at the time of the audit is that the control owners say, no, we don't do it this way, we do it the other way, and that's when the issue starts. So you have to make sure that first is this the right control owner, and does the right control owner accept the control that yes, it belongs to them. Second is you have to make sure that they design the control in a fashion that they can support it. It doesn't have to be designed in a complicated way that it's very difficult to support. So it has to be such a way that the control owner is able to support it. And when it comes to operating it, they are able to operate it as it was designed. And that's where the evidence collection comes in and the execution of the control comes in. Um, because this is um, uh, the first audit, the first year of the audit, this one will be a type 1 audit. What it means is it's not based on the period. It's not looking for the operating effectiveness of the control. The auditors are pretty much looking for the design effectiveness of the control. So what this activity should also entail is once the control has been designed, you have to make sure that the control can be operated as well, right? So the operational documentation and roles and responsibilities have to be identified clearly, um, ensuring that the um, that there's no gaps in this whole activity. If there are gaps, then you have to make sure that those gaps are addressed by talking to the stakeholders and letting them know what are the impacts to the timelines. Because um, like I said earlier, this whole process of putting the control framework together, putting in all the supporting um, documentation, the roles and responsibility, the buy-in from the different control owners, it can take upwards of 6 months. Um, I had conducted an audit for which I already had a control framework, and I was kind of using that control framework. It still took me about um, yeah, it took me about 6 months to put it all together and then start the audit. And even when the audit started, there were again issues where control owners, when they said yes, by the time we went to them with the auditors, they said they changed their mind. So these things can happen. So just be cognizant of the fact. that all these gotchas have to be addressed, and when you jump in to the audit, don't think it's going to be an easy cakewalk. Just be ready for the you know all kinds of wrenches being thrown at you. If you've done the system description and the control framework is done, and because the control framework is done, you would have taken care of all the gaps and all that kind of stuff, right? Because when you're doing the control framework, you're also addressing any gaps that might be there, right? So if you've done these two things, you've pretty much done 50% or more of the journey, right? So you're pretty much done. Now all that remains is bringing in the auditor to do the audit, which I said is going to be a type 1. They will be looking for design effectiveness of the control. And once they've done that, they'll issue the report. They'll come back again, and usually you can narrow down the period, the audit period if you want. Like if a bunch of customers are requesting that you issue the SOC 2 report sooner than later, SOC 2 type 2 sooner than later, then the moment your SOC 1 type 1 gets issued, you set a 6-month timeline from your SOC 2 type 1 concludes. You give your teams 6 months to operate the controls as you had done with the control framework, while the control framework was being put together. And at the end of the 6 months, you get the audit firm in, and they can audit it. Um, Again, it is a bit difficult for teams to start embracing the changes, because a lot of teams are not following process as it's documented. So so just be ready for that. And with that, folks, that's all I had to talk about today. Hope you um, enjoyed the commentary today. If you have any questions, do drop me a line. Hey everybody, hope you found the information I shared with you today to be useful. Please like, subscribe, and share the content in your social circles. If you want to contact me, my contact details are on my website, secinoid.com. The address is also at the bottom left-hand corner of the slide deck. And lastly, thank you for your time, and talk to you soon. Bye bye.